Today is Wednesday, October 27th, 2021. The time is 6:30 p.m. and I'd like to call this meeting of the Macomb Township Board of Trustees to order. So we will now say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Posey, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Trustee Cusimano?
Here.
Trustee Lucido?
Here.
Trustee Oliver?
Here.
Trustee Nevers?
Present.
Treasurer Gillette?
Here.
Clerk Posey here. Supervisor Viviano?
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. Moving on to approval of the agenda. Clerk Posey, are there any additions, deletions, or corrections?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there is one proposed add-on, and it's additional language to item number 19 to include a legal written opinion regarding the adoption of PA 152. That's all I have.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda as corrected?
Move to approve is corrected.
Support.
Is there any discussion? Motion by Treasurer Gillette, supported by Trustee Lucido to approve the agenda as corrected. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to approval of the bills. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion by Trustee Oliver, supported by Treasurer Gillette, to approve the bill run. Members, please vote. That motion passes unanimously. Moving on to approval of the previous meeting minutes from October 13th, 2021. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Any discussion? Motion by Clerk Posey, supported by Trustee Nevers, to approve the previous meeting minutes. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to public comment. This is the first of two public comment periods. This one is for agenda items only, so if there are any members of the public who wish to comment on an agenda item, please approach the podium. You will have a 3-minute time limit. If you are participating remotely, please digitally raise your hand and you will be called upon. Nobody present has a comment on the agenda. Roger, is there anyone who wishes to participate remotely?
No, sir.
Okay. Moving on from public comment, we'll go on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move the consent agenda in its entirety.
Support.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the consent items? Any hearing none, we have a motion by Treasurer Gillette, supported by Trustee Lucido, to approve the consent agenda. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to new business. Item 8 is a request to amend the Water and Sewer Capital Improvement Program. Do you have a motion?
I move to amend the Water and Sewer Capital Improvement Program as presented.
Support.
Mr. Wanglin.
Thank you, Supervisor Viviano and board members. Tonight, Water and Sewer is in front of you requesting we amend the previously approved CIP plan. The current CIP plan was approved on December 2 of 2020. With that said, we've presented also in your packet the second spreadsheet with an amended plan. This amended plan reflects it reflects the COVID era and the environment we now live and work in. There are several projects in the amended plan that were not completed, not done at all. In fact, we bid them out and received tremendously high bids for various reasons. Some of the reasons we believe are material, manpower-related reasons. One of the other reasons we believe is possibly timing the construction season reason. There's also a project in there where we received no quotes. And so thus the need for an amended plan, which this amended plan will go hand in hand with the next item. This amended plan is also one of the many equations that go with the next item, and that being the water and sewer rates. Obviously, the water and sewer rates have to take into consideration the CIP plan. So thus the reason for amending the current plan. Jim, did you have anything you'd like to add?
No, we can answer any questions.
All right,
We'd be
thank you.
happy to answer any questions if you have.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board?
I have a question.
Just one.
Mr.
Jerry,
Charlie?
did we get any CIP bids back where we could move forward on any of the projects? or-
Well, we're currently doing the 23-mile road water main
Okay,
from roughly the McBride Drain, which is just west of Card, down to approximately Indian Point. That was awarded probably 2.5 months ago, and that project is underway.
so, but after that, do you see anything else
Well,
coming?
We're currently doing TV and cleaning.
Yep.
And we're gonna start lining and doing rehab work. So some of the projects are marching forward, but some of the projects have been stalled, delayed for a whole host of reasons. And,
Are you seeing the bigger projects taking that much more longer to get?
well,
Bids
materials,
in and-
obviously materials are an issue. And, pricing is, which we all know is
Yep.
increased by quite a bit at times,
Say least.
which has our attention as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Wanglin, I know you're not no one can predict the future, you're not a psychic, but have you seen any movement on prices or personnel that is moderating some of these big increases that we experienced during the COVID era?
No, in fact, maybe just the opposite.
That's not good news. All right, thank you.
That's what we're hearing.
All right. Oh, and any other, any of the projects that we've unfortunately had a delay, put our water system at any significant risk? Are they, obviously any delayed project is being done for a reason, and there's gonna be some risk, but do you see anything that we should be particularly worried about?
No, I don't. If I felt that way, we would surge ahead with board approval.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Treasurer Dott. Mr. Wanglin, we spoke about this when we went over the CIP, but, all of the projects that are on the current CIP, pretty much all of them were there in the last plan that we adopted. But because of all the cost overruns and cost increases, we've had to go back and amend the prices on all of these running forward, correct?
That's correct.
And one of the purposes we're doing this is, to get accurate budgeting for over the next 5 years, which again, as you mentioned, factors in to our water rates and what we have to account for when we have all these maintenance costs.
That's correct.
So just wanted to make sure that was understood. One of the important reasons this particular, your department is the most costly department, as it is in every municipality. Water and sewer is a huge cost for any municipality that runs these departments. And as you can see, the total on this CIP program is almost $45 million. So we want to be very careful about how we plan these things forward. And I think you and Mr. Van Tiffelen have done a fantastic job of making sure we're prepared.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions. I've done some research in trying to do my due diligence. I understand that CIPs, capital improvement plans, can be up to 10 to 20 years. Is there a reason why we're not projecting out our capital improvements for a longer period of time?
I can answer that. We actually do have a 20-year projection, but when you start getting out more than 5 years, it's very difficult to actually project what you're going to need. So we have to do that as part of some of the permitting that we have through the state of Michigan through Eagle. So we've provided those documents to them, but we only show the 5-year here, which is relevant to the water rates that we're going to cover next.
And I understand Great Lakes Water Authority did some presentations. What was their CIP? Or did they even make a presentation of what their CIP would be over a 5-year period or longer?
We haven't seen that presentation yet. That, I believe, is scheduled for November, is when they present their CIP that they're going to be presenting to the Water Board, or the Great Lakes Water Authority Board, in February. So we'll learn that information here within the next month.
Okay, and I understand that there's strategic goals involved in the CIP plan, including growth, expansion, renewal, replacement, and regulatory compliance. I want to just focus on growth. It's my understanding that the administration and that the engineer and water department are proposing that the growth component, or at least some of the growth component, be funded by ratepayers. Is there any other mechanism to fund that payment for growth in the system? Specifically, I recall seeing some proposal for capital improvements at 26 Mile Road in Hayes. So I'm asking if there's any other funding mechanism, specifically a special assessment district for the affected properties and developers who are developing that property, rather than shifting the burden onto the ratepayers and handling it in-house municipally.
Typically, the developer pays for the utilities that serve their development. So if it's in an area of the township where there is no water or sewer, it's on the developer to extend those utility lines at their own expense. And then when somebody ties into it, they would pay a lateral fee to the township, not back to the developer. In the case of a pump station, which is what you're referencing, the township has historically participated in those projects because it serves a much bigger area, and it's a very large expense. Pump stations are expensive. So, for example, when the pump station went in at North Avenue and 23 Mile, the township picked up the cost for the pump station, but the developer picked up the cost for all the rest of the infrastructure that serves that area. So there's probably, I'm going to guess, in the 6 to 7 square mile area that pump station will serve. And so at that point, the township board recognized that there's a greater good that's being done to the system to have that growth available. Obviously, the township, we have a different township board, and that policy can change, by the board at any time. We put that in there recognizing what we've done in the past.
And this is what we've been doing for the past 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? How many years has it been that?
That particular pump station that I referenced was put in, I'm going to guess 15 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago.
And under the new CIP, or the proposed revised CIP, there isn't a change in the delegation of those responsibilities to pay, correct?
That is correct. That would be one of the only places where I would say that we're picking up the tab that is partially to serve an area that is outside of the current system. We have some upgrades that we're making to the sewer system to recognize that we have future growth that needs to get into the existing sewer system, because when the township put it in, it didn't size it for the ultimate flow. This was back in the 90s, before we knew what growth was going to be like here in the township. So there were some interim solutions that were made, and now it's time to go in and replace that infrastructure. It's reached its life expectancy and needs to be replaced, but needs to be sized for the ultimate flow, because we know how things grow around here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Trustee Kuzmano. Anyone else have any questions?
I just have one question. It looks like the one that we approved back in December was about 46 million, and this one's about 44. So, just so the residents know, we're not actually increasing our budget over the next 5 years. We're actually decreasing it a little bit. I just wanted to, if that's correct, the way to say it. So
Correct.
it sounds like we're just saying, oh, we're just gonna spend a ton more money because everything's more expensive, but we're actually decreasing the budget over the next 5
Correct.
years.
Gentlemen, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of that is because we've done some of the projects that were on the earlier budget, and we've probably added, did we add any that were projected out a little further in the 5-year?
The same number of projects are in this plan that were in the old one. It's just that we're recognizing that some things are not gonna be done as quickly as we had thought.
Sure.
You know, we had shifted about $4 million from, you know, this year to next year into the following year. And then we also recognize that there are some projects that probably won't be done within this 5-year window that we've then pushed out into that 20-year CIP that I mentioned earlier. So those won't show up on here, so that's where we lost the $2 million on projects that will be, you know, in the future.
Gotcha.
We're also recognizing that the prices are higher and also changing the scope of some of the work that we do, so the TV and cleaning, the sewer lining and repairs, we're evaluating, trying to hit the budget number versus going with a straight, you know, number or lineal footage of pipe or number of manholes and then getting a higher price for them. So the net to the water and sewer fund is the same as it was. We're not getting as much work done. When the prices change, then we'll reevaluate and maybe be able to get more work done when prices come back down.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a comment on something I read, which I think is poignant and on point. Wastewater systems represent a major capital investment for communities and are a major capital asset of that community. If maintenance of the system is not managed, equipment and facilities will deteriorate through normal use and age. Maintaining the value of this capital asset is one of the utility's major responsibilities. Accomplishing this goal requires ongoing investment to maintain existing facilities and equipment and extend life of the system, and establishing a comprehensive O&M, which is operation and maintenance program. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Kuzma. All right, if there's no more discussion, let's see. We have a motion by Treasurer Gillette, supported by Trustee Lucido, to amend the Water and Sewer Capital Improvement Program. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 9 is a request to approve the 2021-2022 water and sewer rates. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the 2021 water and sewer rates with a 0% increase.
Support.
Ms. Lund, I think the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm Dawn Lund, Vice President of Utility Financial Solutions, and our firm conducts cost of service studies, financial plans, special rate designs for utilities across the country, Guam, the Caribbean, and Canada. We also are instructors and frequently requested speakers for financial topics across the country. I'm here tonight to review the financial projections for water and wastewater. I want to really briefly talk about 3 key targets that work together that help guide rate adjustments for long-term financial sustainability. I'm also going to talk about how you are currently, how the systems currently are financially compared to those key targets, and what we project you to move into the future, and what we would recommend in the future to keep those targets healthy. So I'll briefly start off by explaining the 3 key targets. The 3 key targets I'm going to talk about today are debt coverage ratio, minimum cash reserves, and operating income. Debt coverage ratio is simply a measurement of debt affordability. It looks to see if you cash flow enough from operations in the current year to pay your debt service payment. Notice I didn't say, do you have enough cash on hand to pay your debt service payment? It's, are we cash flowing enough from operations in that year to pay our debt service payment? hopefully, when we have revenue bonds, that debt coverage ratio is something above a 1.25. It simply means we've cash flowed enough from operations to pay our debt service payment 1.25 times. So certainly, the higher that ratio, the better. In general, we don't like that to go under 1, obviously. It just simply means we're not cash flowing enough from operations to pay our debt payment. The second thing briefly I want to talk about is minimum cash reserves. I look at unique risks to each utility, water and wastewater, and I determine what that minimum cash reserve should be. I want you to be something above the minimum. If we approach the minimum, that means you're starting to approach a cash critical situation. So we certainly want you to be above the minimum. But that gives us a guide on if we fall below that minimum, it should trigger some sort of action from the board to fund that back up to minimum levels. Operating income is the last target I'm going to talk about today. Operating income simply means if we're fully funding our operating income target, our current ratepayers are paying their fair share. They're paying for what it takes for the operation and maintenance expense to service them, to provide them service. And they're paying a rate of return enough to recoup the inflationary increase on the assets you have invested in the system. So when you go to replace that in the future, you've got the funds to do that. So I want to take these 3 key targets and show you where you are financially today, and then I'm going to show you how we project the targets to smooth out with these 3 targets as a guide. This here I'm going to talk about is a financial summary of the water department with no rate changes. And the 3 key targets that I talked about are operating income, cash balance, and debt coverage ratio. You can see here in this column, I have projected, this is just showing you without any rate increases, if you did nothing, where would you be financially in the water department moving into the future? And you can see that operating income is positive, projected to be positive currently, and it would move to an operating loss by 2026. If we're fully funding everything we should be funding in the system, that target would be right around $2.7 million every year. You can see we're not meeting that target. However, what helps balance that decision on meeting that operating income is the next column, which is the cash balance column. When I look at risks unique to the water department, I want you to hold a minimum of about $6 million in the water department. You can see we're currently holding that level, but over a period of time, that cash does deteriorate over time. That's a function of, because I don't have any rate increases in there currently, and of course, we're spending down some of our cash with our capital improvement program. You currently don't have any debt in the water department, so obviously that's a healthy target. So the next slide I'm going to show you is actually trying to smooth out that operating income so we don't get to that point of losses, and actually try to smooth out that cash burn as well. So when we look at the rate increases needed to keep a long-term financially healthy utility, we could forego a rate adjustment this year. I'm going to show you actually wastewater next, and then I'm going to show you a combined table where you guys actually look at your utility cash balance combined, and you'll see when we get to that table how we could forego an increase this year in both utilities. The reason being the last couple years, which has happened across the country, there has been delay in capital spending. Utilities across the country haven't spent what they've planned on spending due to COVID. So that's not unique to you, but I believe that with the cash balances we currently have, we need to show commitment to that capital improvement program, which you've just done tonight. And you'll see that we spend down that cash. You've planned well in the past to be able to sustain the capital improvement program that you've just approved tonight with minimal increases moving into the future. So if we look at just this year is what we're concentrating on tonight, but I do give you a look at where we're potentially heading into the future. Obviously, costs change, capital changes, your sales can change. Water's very weather dependent. You never know exactly where you're gonna be on a sales basis. And so we could sustain a 0% rate increase, having an operating income of right around $2 million, meeting our minimum cash reserve of about $6.9 million. And then looking into the future, again, this needs to be updated as the capital improvement program materializes over the next couple of years. But for the information we know today, it looks like you could have inflationary type increases of about 2.9% moving out into the future. Of course, keeping the operating income, I'm just trying to stabilize that operating income right around the $2 million mark. You see there that I'm not fully funding that full operating income, but what I'm trying to do is also balance this cash column. I want you to be something above the minimum, but I use that cash column to balance that rate increase to ensure it's as low as possible while keeping the utility healthy in the long term. So before I move on to wastewater, again, in quick summary, we're not recommending a rate increase for 2022. When that capital improvement program starts to materialize, we need to take another look at this. This is just information we know today, and those increases moving into the future are just for informational purposes. Do you guys have any questions on water before I move to wastewater?
No, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions. Could the township engineer describe exactly what capital improvements are related on the water side?
So if you go back and look at that spreadsheet that we had in the previous item, the bottom projects are all water related. So those were the projects that are used in this analysis. So they're typically in blue in color on that spreadsheet.
I'm specifically, is it water main, water trunk line installations?
Yes, so replacing the water main on 23 Mile Road. We have a metering facility at 24 Mile and Romeo Plank that we're looking at replacing. We have some water mains and some subdivisions that we have some water main breaks, enough that we think that we want to go in and replace them. We have some 6-inch water main that needs to be upsized to 8-inch to complete the distribution system according to the master plan.
What is the projected use life of those improvements?
I'm taught to say 20 years, but realistically, most of the water mains that we have in the system are much older than that. The oldest water main that we have in the system was put in the 60s, and we've been slowly replacing it. So a lot of that 6-inch water main that I mentioned earlier was put in the 60s. So it depends on the soils. It depends. There's a lot of factors that go into that, but more than 20 years.
And has the percentage been paid for on the part of the property owners affected? There's another way of doing this, assuming that revenue needs to be raised, and that would be through special assessment districts. Has that ever been done in this township?
It has not been done. For new infrastructure, water and sewer lines, special assessment districts are used. But for replacement work, the system typically picks up those costs.
Okay. And what percentage of the capital improvements roughly are for new water mains?
Most of what we have in there is replacing something. I'd have to go back and look at the specifics.
That's all right.
Yeah,
If you don't know off the top of your
But
head.
yeah, I can. There's so for example, when we go to put Broughton Road in, we need to put water main in along Broughton Road in order to complete the system. We want to do it with the road project or very soon after that. So that would be an example of something that's in the capital improvement program that we want. It will help the system out, and we are planning on doing that installation along with the road. But most of the rest of it is replacement work.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Thank you, Trustee Kuzmano. Go ahead, Ms. Lund.
Okay, I'll continue on with wastewater real briefly. I won't go through the key targets again. They're obviously the same. I'll just mention the columns we're looking at: operating income, cash balance, and debt coverage ratio. This table, again, is showing wastewater with no rate increases here out the 5-year period. You can see currently we're projected to operate at an income for 2022, however, turning very quickly to losses. Our cash balance is projected to spend down very significantly over the next 5 years. In fact, with the information we know today, and certainly the capital costs could change over the next couple years, we actually even need to consider a possible bond or some sort of borrowing out in 2025. Oops, excuse me, I just bumped the mouse here. Our debt coverage ratio currently, we're just slightly above a 1, and without rate adjustments, we're projected to be under that 1 threshold that certainly for financial planning purposes, we like to see above a 1. So the idea here is we need to balance out those losses, stop that aggressive cash spending. We want to try to balance that out or smooth that out, and of course meet that debt coverage ratio. So when we move to what we could do this year, again, as many utilities across the country have seen, we haven't completed the capital improvement program that was projected over the last couple years. And until that program really starts taking hold and and materializes, we could forego a rate adjustment this year. However, when we do start spending out that capital in future years, this is just for informational purposes today. This will need to be updated, should be updated on a yearly basis. We're just trying to stabilize that operating income. Notice I'm still not even fully funding that operating income, but I am trying to balance that with my cash balance, meeting actually my minimum. So quite frankly, the board could consider higher increases in the future. I didn't put them in the table because if everything comes out perfectly like we know today, we could get by with this type of rate track. However, with costs increasing and that cash spend down, we may consider larger rate increases in the future. But I did want to just put something in there for informational purposes. And of course, the debt coverage ratio stabilizes also with this plan. So I can show you, I'm going to show you real briefly 2 other slides that show combined. But before I move on to the combined utilities, do you guys have any questions on wastewater?
Anyone?
Okay,
Okay.
move to the combined utilities. So this is how you would typically see your financials. You actually have a combined water and wastewater cash balance. You can see combined, we're currently operating at an income. We are projected to operate at losses. We're spending our cash down. Of course, that's a direct relationship to having no rate adjustments in this particular table, as well as that capital improvement program. Keep in mind that we can possibly mitigate some of this bonding in the future by looking at a more aggressive rate track in the future. That's nothing you need to decide tonight. Again, we want to be updating this as the capital plan materializes. But that's just a note to keep in mind is we can balance that bonding with a different rate track. Then, of course, our debt coverage ratio is healthy because it's showing combined right now. But by that 5th year, we're dipping under that 1. So, again, for 2022, we're projecting no rate increases until this capital improvement program really starts materializing. Then we will most likely need rate increases in water and wastewater, more inflationary type increases in water and something above inflation in wastewater. And as we update this on a yearly basis, we can make decisions on what those increases should be and what we want this bonding to be in the future. Do you guys have any questions on water, wastewater, or the combined tables?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Do your calculations assume that the rates by Great Lakes Water Authority will be at the rate of inflation?
I've projected 3%. Historically, we had projected 5%, but the last couple of years, Great Lakes Water Authority have hovered right around 2 or 2.5% for you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Okay.
Right? That's all I have.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
I guess I'm going to ask you one question.
Sure.
There's always been a lot of discussion amongst our board members and amongst members of the community about what a water tower might do. So if you can answer this, I apologize for not maybe springing this on you, but
Yeah, no.
would the building of a water tower necessarily decrease rates in a community like ours?
Okay, so I'm going to answer it this way. First of all, I'm not an engineer, but I can tell you from working with utilities that have installed towers that, and of course, every system is unique, so I can't tell you exactly what would happen here, but I can tell you from experience in seeing when water towers have been installed, it typically does not decrease rates. What it does is it mitigates the need for future rate increases. In fact, some of the clients that I have worked with in the past that have installed water towers were facing pretty significant rate increases. We put together a plan. They stuck to the plan. To their credit, they stuck to the plan. We didn't raise rates, but what happened is when the water tower came online and purchase water costs went down, they were able to mitigate the rate increase that was needed. So in general, with the systems that I've worked with, it doesn't necessarily decrease rates, it mitigates rate increases in the future. But again, I haven't looked at your system
Right.
specifically, I don't have those numbers, I don't know exactly what it would do here, but in general, it mitigates future rate increases, not decreases them.
Understood. I
question.
appreciate the answer. Thank you.
I had a follow-up
Sure,
actually to
go ahead.
that. And the savings that might be there to mitigate the future, if Great Lakes Water Authority were to possibly change the way they do their rating structure, it may not have an effect at all.
Yeah,
Is
thank
that
you
correct?
for bringing that up. I should have expanded on my answer because that's an excellent point. So when water towers were going in, I had just, actually as a rate consultant, made the assumption that the rate formula would change from Great Lakes Water Authority. And then what would happen is those that have put in the water tower, of course, wouldn't see that savings if the formula were to change. So that's, of course, always a possibility with anything. If the formula is not so much peak driven in the future, certainly that the whole cost structure could change. So you may put in a water tower, the formula changes, and then it doesn't benefit you. And now you've made that that capital cost with possibly not the way to make up that cost. But nobody knows which way that'll go.
Sure. Thank you.
But good point.
Thank you, Mr. Lucido.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe when we met with Shelby Township, who is currently putting in a water tower or water storage tower, it was approximately $12 million for that.
That's correct.
That's another factor into the whole equation as well.
Well, if I may add to that, Madam Clerk, there's also the cost of personnel to maintain the tower. That's ongoing. So I know that members of this board and our department heads did go to Shelby and have met with and discussed with other communities and realized that there's no slam dunk. It could be a significant investment that doesn't pay off, or it could be one that mitigates rates. So it's been a challenge for us as a board and for our departments to try to ask ourselves how lucky we feel, if we're going to sink millions of dollars into a tower. So it's a very difficult decision.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question. It's my understanding from discussions with Mr. Wangland that almost all contracts with Great Lakes Water Authority, formerly Detroit Water and Sewage, are for a fixed term, obligating the municipality to purchase all of its water from that vendor. Is that true?
Yes, that's the contract states that we have to get the water from them. We can't mix with another source.
And when is the expiration of that contract?
I don't know the date off the top of my head. It was a 30-year contract that goes year to year after the term. And we've probably been in it 10. Yeah.
Is-
About 20 more
It
years.
actually started before the Great Lakes Water Authority, came to be. It was back when it was Detroit Water and Sewage Department.
So if we were looking to purchase water from another source, we'd have to wait until the expiration of that contract. And that's 10 years out, 15 years out, or how?
I'm gonna guess it's 20 years or more.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
But the rate negotiations do open up periodically, correct?
That is correct. And all of the
year?
customers, all of the customers should be opening next fall, basically.
I have one more question, Mr. Chairman. It goes way back when I first dove into this issue. I understand that the 1,000,000 gallons daily flow rate that part of our rate structure is set up on that basis, or the negotiations for the rate. We've declined from 25 million gallons daily to 22. Is that close? I'm doing it from recollection.
Mr. Wangland, do you know that number?
You know the number, Jerry?
This past year, we've used about, or this past summer, we've used about half of the water that we did the previous season, obviously due to weather.
Oh, weather. Well, my question was intuitively, I had a problem with the township expanding as rapidly as it was, and our water consumption rates going down, our maximum flow. Is there some way you can speak to that issue to make sense of that? Because it seems like we're chasing a moving target here.
Yeah, so the water usage throughout the country, and I'm sure Don can address this too, is down. When we first started to know this during the 07-08 downturn, everyone thought once the economy came back that water usage would come back, and it didn't. And that can be contributed to a lot of things. Everybody that buys a new fixture in their house, it's more water efficient than the old one. So that's what we struggle with here, is we do have the growth, and other municipalities don't. So, but we haven't seen our water usage go up with the population going up, because I think that we're using less and less water. And Jerry's right, it does depend on the weather. Last year, we had a hot, dry summer, people were home, so Shelby Township had an issue that they have to address with the storage facility. We noticed that we used more water last year than we did the year before. This year, it's down quite a bit. So it's hard to tie directly the growth to maybe us paying more. The only way that you can look at it is maybe others are reducing their water usage more than we are, and we may be staying about the same.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Thank you, Trustee Kuzma.
Sure, I've got a couple comments if I might,
You might.
then I will.
Okay.
Thank you. This would be the second consecutive year that we've approved 0% increases in our water and sewer rates. And looking at our world today, I don't see anything that hasn't gone up in the last couple of years. We're very fortunate or circumstantial that we're able to approve 0% increases 2 consecutive years in a row for water and sewer. So I think we're very fortunate, or we're lucky that we're able to pass on no rate increases to our residents. From 2015 to 2020, rate increases were averaging about 6.4% a year, if you average them out. And what that means is, if we applied that same increase this year, the average household in Macomb Township would pay $50 more, almost $50 more per year for water. This 2 consecutive years of 0% increase, if you add those to $49.64 savings every year, saving almost $100. So that's the good news. The bad news is we know that isn't going to continue in the future, that costs are going to go up, and that we are going to have to adapt to these increased costs in the future. So it's a good news, bad news situation. We can celebrate the fact that there's one thing in our life that isn't skyrocketing right now, and that's the cost of water and sewer. But we temper that happiness with the fact that we know that we are going to have rate increases, and we hope they're inflationary and not approaching the 6.5% that has been historic. So I'm just pleased at this moment that we're able to tell the residents of Macomb Township there's one thing in their life that they're not going to have to pay more for, at least for 1 year. So it's good news.
Thank you, Treasurer Gillette. Any more discussion? Okay. We have a motion by Treasurer Gillette, supported by Clerk Posey, to approve the 2020-2021 water sewer rates at a 0% increase. Members, please vote.
That should pass.
Motion passes unanimously. It's a no-brainer. All right, moving on to item 10, we have a request to approve change order number 1 for the Waldenburg Park Improvements Project, which is actually a reduction of $23,616.86. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Support.
Who got the support? Mr. Van Tifflin?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, board members. This Waldenburg Park Improvement Project is now complete. What's before you is the final balancing change order that takes into consideration all the quantities that were in the contract. Some went up, some went down. We added a few items to the contract, but these are the kind of change orders that we like. It's a reduction of $23,616.86, and we are recommending approval.
Thank you, Mr. Van Tifflin. Any questions? Okay, hearing none, there's a motion by Trustee Oliver, supported by Trustee Nevers, to approve the change order number 1 for Waldenburg for a reduction of $23,616.86. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 11 is a request to authorize the HR director to extend an offer of employment for the appraiser aide position. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Mr. DeBaca?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and board members. I'm here to request authorization to extend an offer of employment to Michael Loretti for the appraiser aide position. Back on August 18th, the Board of Trustees authorized the HR department to recruit for this position. This position was posted in compliance with the MAPE CBA agreement. We received 4 applications. All 4 applicants were interviewed. Kim Patterson, Carol Nicholson, and myself were on the selection committee, and we are recommending Michael Loretti for this position. If approved, it's contingent upon successful completion of a pre-hire physical exam, drug and alcohol screening, and background check. And we are targeting a date of around November 22nd of this year. This is a budgeted position. Thank you for your consideration, and is there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. DeBaca. Any questions? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion by Treasurer Gillette, supported by Clerk Posey, to authorize the HR director to extend an offer of employment for the appraisal aide position to Michael Loretti. Members, please vote. That motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 12, we have a request to award a 3-year information technology support services agreement to IT Right with 2 one-year extension options. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
So we put out an RFP for a new IT services provider. We had a number of applicants. We interviewed 4 of them. The selection committee is proposing IT Right. IT Right happens to be a specialist in municipal IT support services with over 600 municipal clients statewide. The selection committee was very impressed with their presentation, their aggressive IT security approach, and we are confident that they are going to provide us great value in return. In addition, their contract represents a $30,000 annual savings over the contract that is expiring in December with a different provider. Any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
First, I'd like to concur that a key focus of the selection committee was internet, or rather security of our data, security of our computer systems. A lot of attention was paid during the interview process on that element of the contract. And IT Right, I think, represents a very substantial increase in our security of our residents' data that's held here at the township. So I'm very pleased that we've moved that direction. And I'd just like to amend my previous statement when I said that we expect everything to be going up and up on the water rates, and instead we held even. Well, in this case, we're actually cutting costs. So it's saving, the residents of the township $30,000 a year. One of the few things that's gone down. So I'm excited to move forward with this firm.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion by Treasurer Gillette, supported by Clerk Posey, to approve the contract with IT Right for a 3-year IT services agreement. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Item 13 is a request to authorize the supervisor to split and sell a 2-acre parcel of the Pitchford Park property. Final sale, of course, subject to board approval. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
No, so the piece in question, if anyone who's familiar with the Pitchford Park property, there is a drain that bisects the property. It effectively makes that piece of the park very difficult to work with. It was something that was discussed with the donor when they made the discussion. The agreement when we received the property was open in a way that it allows us to make this disposal of this 2 acres. In addition, whatever revenues we generate from this piece, this 2-acre piece, will be put back right into the development of Pitchford Park, and in our effort to make sure that Pitchford Park is paid for with no debt. Is there any questions?
Did you get a motion?
Yes. Motion by Oliver and Trustee.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may,
Sure.
I'd like to note that this item and the next item on the agenda are related in the sense that it's an effort by our township to sell properties that we're not using and that are not currently in the public use, and then use those resources to invest in development of the park. Just like to note that we have had these properties appraised, both this property and the next item property, and even though we don't know what they're gonna get at sale, we don't know what the bids will come in, we're optimistic that we'll get between the two, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 to 1.2 million for the combined parcels. If so, that would be a substantial amount we could invest in the pickleball courts, the tennis courts, the playscapes, the dog park, the elements of Pitchford Park that we need to pay for. So ultimately, again, this is part of our goal to obtain and develop a park without raising taxes and without incurring debt.
Thank you, Treasurer Gillette. Any other comments?
Just quick, how are we gonna list this? What's the procedure?
Well, I will work with the assessing office to have this parcel split at the drain, and then I will list it with the broker,
Okay.
or I'll have the broker list it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. There's no more questions? We have a motion by Trustee Oliver, supported by Trustee Lucido, to authorize the supervisor to split and sell a 2-acre parcel located in Pitchford Park, subject to final sale, subject to board approval. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Item 14 is a request to authorize the supervisor to sell parcels number 20-08-17-402-005, located at 5140 Romeo Plank Road, and parcel 20-08-17-426-003, located at 51660 Romeo Plank Road. Final sale, subject to board approval. And should we note, this is the former Wade Nursery property. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Support.
So as the motion, or as the request states, I'm moving to dispose of the Wade property. The generous donation of the Pitchford Park really supplanted our need to continue to own Wade. Wade was purchased with the hopes of making it a combination of park and perhaps some municipal services. But the Pitchford property is actually much larger, is gonna provide us, and it's a mile down the street. It's gonna be able to provide us a lot more amenities that I know the township and the township residents have been hoping for, and we'll be able to get to it a lot quicker, making Wade dispensable as far as the township needs go. Is there any questions?
Will the Old Town Hall be moved prior to listing it so that there's no confusion of what?
No, but it'll be a condition of the sale with
Okay.
whoever was part of it, that we're gonna have the opportunity to move that and move that over to somewhere near Town Hall.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, hearing no more questions, we have a motion by Treasurer Gillette, supported by Trustee Nevers, to authorize the supervisor to sell the former Wade Nursery property, final sale subject to board approval. Members, please vote. That motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item, I believe it's 15. So we have a request to approve the law enforcement and emergency dispatch services agreement renewal with Macomb County Sheriff's Department. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Hello, Commander.
Good evening. How are you guys today? Mr. Supervisor, Township Board, thanks for having us here. Before I get started, I want to introduce Lieutenant Melissa Stevens and Sergeant Scott Jones, who are your representatives here for the Township. They do and oversee all operations here, and they do a phenomenal job representing the Township and the Sheriff's Office. I want to express our great partnership that we have with the Township. We've had a great relationship as far as I could remember, starting at the Sheriff's Office at a young age. I want to reassure our commitment to you, to this community, now and for the future. Some faces here on the board that I see, that I recognize, some this evening that I do not recognize. But I want to explain to you what we provide here at the Sheriff's Office on the back end of our product. So we know that you're paying for 2 supervisors, 30 deputies, and you're paying for the portion of school liaisons. But I want to explain to you what happens on the other end of it. The services that come as part of this package are, we have a detective bureau, our sheriff's enforcement team, which is our drug team, that also does surveillance, our evidence technicians, polygraph operator, fire investigators, crash investigations unit, youth services, Macomb area computer enforcement team, SWAT team, along with all its vehicles and equipment, crisis negotiators, MATS, which is our Macomb Auto Theft Squad, K-9 units when needed, traffic units when needed, and a drone unit when needed. These are some of the services, and I can give you an example of a crash that we had at Hall Road in Hayes. When we activate a crash team, and a crash team basically comes out and analyzes a serious crash that could be a potential fatal, they get into search warrants, pulling black boxes from vehicles. This is part of the package. Those individuals are not part of the 30 deputies that are on the road patrol. All that's listed, like I stated, comes with the 32 positions, contracted law enforcement positions that you're paying for, 5 dispatchers, and the 2 school liaisons, which equals out to 1 body because of the funding that comes from the school. However, in the future, obviously, we do suggest of adding to your patrol complement at some point. I'm not saying doing that today. I believe with what we have, we're doing a great job. But at some point in the future, it would be a discussion. I do have great respect for your board, your township, and really it's up to you to establish what type of patrol services and police services that you want to see in this township. With that, I'm here for any questions. Again, thanks for having us, and hopefully we continue this commitment for the years 22, 23, and 24.
Thank you, Commander. Any members of the board have questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions. those back-end services that you just mentioned are not specifically delineated in the contract, is that correct?
Correct.
Are they included in paragraph 1, shall provide law enforcement services? It's my understanding that you're representing that includes all those additional services.
Well, those services, I mean, technically, you're not paying for. But what happens is the processes, and I'll give you an example, that when yes, it is part of services,
Yes.
but when a complaint's taken here in the township by, let's just say, a patrol deputy, it gets forwarded to our, let's say it's an investigative report. It gets forwarded to our detective bureau where a lieutenant reviews it, a sergeant, and then it gets delegated to a detective for further investigation. That's all part of the whole overall package. But those are not services that you're being billed for.
And Mr. Chairman, I believe that paragraph 14 indicates that a representative of the Macomb County Sheriff's Office shall, upon request, attend a portion of Township Council, Commission, or governing legislative meetings to respond to any inquiries regarding this agreement thereunder. It's upon request. I guess it's a question to the board. I noticed that the attendance of the Macomb County Sheriff's Office deputies has waned, at least since I've been on the board.
I can answer that. That was from my direction. They attended the first few of our meetings. I felt comfortable not having them here for security purposes. I thought our residents are very well mannered when they're here, and my preference was to have them, out servicing the community. But certainly, if the board feels otherwise, we can entertain asking them to come, and they're happy to do it. I know Sergeant Jones has come to a few of our planning commission meetings where we had expected quite a large crowd, and he attended. And there's been a few times where I've asked them to come to town hall for a couple of reasons. They showed up within minutes. So if this board wants to have their presence at future board meetings, I'm happy to entertain that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to state that I think that the Macomb County Sheriff's Office does an excellent job for the citizens of Macomb Township. But what really keeps us safe is our own law-abiding citizens that look out for one another. They're great at doing the reports and making sure law enforcement and prosecution can move forward for criminals. But it's up to each one of us to keep an eye out and report any suspected violations of law. I would like the board to consider at some point in the future having periodic reports given for measurable metrics of the number of calls, types of calls. I know some of this is made available on the website.
Actually, Trustee Guzmano, I'm given that report on a monthly basis, and I'm happy to share that with the board.
Oh, great. That would be perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Gotta remember to do that. Okay. Go ahead, Treasurer.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you.
I know you've been itching to get to this part.
I have. Thank you.
Hopefully it's good.
I think it's good, but it is a question at the end of this that's important. And I looked at what our neighboring communities pay in their millage rates for law enforcement. So somebody who lives in a home worth $250,000, who lives in Clinton Township, that home pays $930 a year for police protection in Clinton Township. And our neighbor to the east in Chesterfield Township, somebody living in a $250,000 home, pays $497 a year for law enforcement. The neighbor to the west in Shelby Township, a $250,000 home, those residents there pay $377 a year for law enforcement. When I look at our millage and I break down this contract, here in Macomb Township, residents who live in a home worth $250,000 pay $188 a year for law enforcement. Our neighbors pay an average of $601 if you average those neighbors to the immediate neighbors. So every household here in Macomb Township, every family pays on average, has an average of $413 more than their neighbors in our neighboring communities have as a result of the low cost of this contract. So the question I have to you is, one of the laws of economics is that you get what you pay for, yet you do this at a low rate and provide actually excellent service. How are we getting more than we're paying for? I don't get complaints from residents about the quality of the service of our law enforcement officers. I think in communicating with residents, I see the quality of the services you provide as just as good, if not better, than our neighboring communities, and we're doing it at such an incredibly affordable rate. It almost seems to defy the laws of economics, and I'm just appreciative that we're able to have this relationship with the Sheriff's Department and pass along some of the benefits that being part of the Sheriff's Department has to our residents. So it's a theoretical question. I don't expect you to answer, but I just want to say that you seem to defy the laws of economics by doing such an amazing job and providing such a great value to our residents.
Really, thanks for the kind words. I can tell you that, sitting back at the office and looking at statistics and looking at the runs and costs for service for this town, you are our largest contracted community. I give the credit to the men and women out on the street that are going call to call. I know that another sheriff's office that is our neighbor in a jurisdiction that's similar has 62 deputies on the road. And I think that with the amount that we have, I owe it to the men and women that are out there going call to call.
Well, you guys do great. Your team does a great job, and I want to thank you for it.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to point out that along with the excellent service that you have, Macomb Township is unique in that our sheriff and fire department are combined in our public safety building. So two major aspects to the public safety of the township work so well together that they're housed in the same building for the best possible services that we can receive. So I'm thankful for that as well.
Thank you.
It's
We
very
appreciate
unique.
that. Thank you.
All right, any other?
There was one line item that gave me pause, and I had a question. Fire equipment maintenance vehicles, it's 12 units at $31,100 per year in year one, and then it continues. Could someone explain what that's for, given the fact that we have our own fire equipment?
I'm sorry, sir. Is that on attachment A?
Yes, it's on the
Attachment
chart.
A, final line item.
That is for dispatch. That is the dispatching equipment that's needed for your fire department. So there's vehicles, so you're looking at, those are the sheriff's vehicles, and then just above that is the fire maintenance equipment, that's at $79,381. And that is all dispatch related as far as CAD goes and as far as modems and things that they utilize. But under that, you're purchasing 12 vehicles at the $31,000 rate, and that's where you get the $373.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Guzmano. If there's no more questions, we have a motion by Clerk Posey, supported by Trustee Lucido, to approve the Law Enforcement and Emergency Dispatch Services Agreement with Macomb County Sheriff's Department. Members, please vote. That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next item, we have a request to authorize the supervisor to accept the SEMCOG grant to assess residential street conditions on behalf of Macomb Township. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So to refresh everyone's memory, this is part of our residential street program policy that we adopted, what was a few months ago now. We are finally getting to the point we're going to be awarded the grant that will allow us to pay for an engineering firm to do a study on all of our residential roads, and they will assign them a grade based on condition. And we will use that study to determine if a community or a subdivision petitions to have their road redone. That will be one of the basis for making determination which community gets awarded the project that year. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chair, just by way of a little bit expounding on your explanation, the county appropriates $2 million per year for all the subdivision residential roads in every township in this county. So that means the $2 million is split with Chesterfield Township, Clinton Township, Macomb Township, Washington Township. Every single township is splitting $2 million for residential roads. And $2 million doesn't go very far on residential roads. So we have very limited resources. As members of the board will remember, a few months ago, the township decided for the very first time to put in an application for that money and to try to bring some of that $2 million for what we considered, or what we frankly knew to be the worst subdivision roads in this community, which is a Chelsea Park subdivision, which is, it looks like a moonscape. And I know there's a lot of bad subdivision roads, but that one is the worst. And so we actually, for the first time, put in $250,000 as a township toward helping the residents with those roads. The residents are paying $250,000, and we were informed a week or so ago that we were approved from the county for $500,000 to go to that project. So the expenditure of the $250,000 by this board has brought down $500,000 to fix those roads that we otherwise would never have had. So
Recording in progress.
Thank you. So,
I had to put pause when you started talking because
I'm sure. But I'm excited moving forward that this Pazer study will contribute to allowing us to bring down what resources we can. I know it's not enough. It's never going to be enough. But the Pazer study is there to help us decide where is the most important, or the most impactful place we can put the resources that we do have. So this is a great grant. We're very fortunate to receive this grant from SEMCOG. They're going to basically pay to have all these residential subdivision streets evaluated, graded, that we will use in creating our new policy for assisting residents with very bad subdivision roads.
Thank you, Treasurer Gillette. Any other comments?
I would just, Mr. Chairman, if I'd just like to say that I believe that this is going to be one of many this board can hope to achieve with all the efforts from our department heads and the grant writer that we're effortlessly working towards getting these grants to help offset some of the expenses to the residents. So we're looking forward to more.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion by Trustee Oliver, supported by Trustee Kuzmano, to authorize the supervisor to accept the SEMCOG grant for the Pazer study on behalf of Macomb Township. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 17, we have a request to establish the per parcel charge for collecting the 2022 taxes for local school districts pursuant to section 161 of PA 333 at $3.31 per parcel. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Treasurer Gillette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Every year, we're required to set a fee for collecting the taxes on behalf of local school districts, the ISD, the community college. The $3.31 per parcel fee that we're proposing to approve today is the same fee that we collected their taxes for in the previous year. So the rate will not go up. It's the same fee. We did raise it a year ago because it hadn't been raised since like the 90s. But we did make adjustment to bring the fee up to what the cost of collection actually is. And we're maintaining it for this upcoming year unchanged. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Treasurer Gillette.
Mr. Chairman, I ask for a friendly amendment that the Macomb Community College tax district be broke out as a separate item.
If I could answer that.
Possible?
It's not possible because the actual school, the ISD, enters in contracts with the community college and with the local school districts independently. So we charge one fee and they distribute it amongst themselves through their own agreements. So the college and the ISD and the schools work out how they will split that fee themselves. I don't control that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I withdraw the amendment.
Okay, any more questions? We have a motion by Treasurer Gillette, supported by Clerk Posey, to establish the per parcel collection fee at $3.31 for the 2022 taxes for local school districts. Members, please vote. That motion passes unanimously, 6-0, with trustee Kuzmano abstaining. Okay, moving on to public comment. This is for non-agenda items. If you have anything you would wish to speak on, please approach the podium. Please remember that you have a 3-minute time limit. If there is anyone who wishes to participate remotely, please digitally raise your hand and you will be called to come on. Please state your name and your address for the record, please.
My name is Matt Elwert, and I live at 48310 Anthony Drive. Mr. Viviano, we have some additional information that I'd like to distribute to the board that supplements my words today. Do I have your approval to do that?
You can hand it to the attorneys and they'll hand it up.
Great. Thank you.
So if you want to go ahead while that gets handed out.
I'm sorry. Good evening. My name is Matt Elwert, and I stand before you tonight as a spokesman representing over 150 residents of Macomb Township. We have signed petitions to protest to the installation of a 40-foot Verizon 5G wireless utility pole that was intended to be erected on the boulevard of my yard surrounding my home. I want to bring to your attention the multitude of elected officials that were contacted at both the state and local levels who have denied any knowledge of these events that are taking place within your township. If that be the truth, you're failing to do the job your residents and taxpayers had elected you to do. Examples of the officials that were contacted include senators, representatives, the county executive, and our township's building department, clerk's office, and the supervisor. In all fairness, I would like to point out that Trustee Peter Lucido, Representative Lisa McLean, and the Macomb County Executive, once presented with the facts of our concerns of the harmful effects, are the only ones who have gone to bat for us. Whereas Supervisor Viviano, you brushed off our concerns as they were considered meritless and fruitless. The remainder of the members that were contacted either declined to respond to our comments and concerns and or denied any knowledge of it, but they refused to look into it. For the record, the lack of actions here will not be forgotten by the residents of Macomb Township. And in front of you, you have some information that we emailed out regarding 5G wireless technology. Furthermore, Mark Drive is the main internal throughway that connects Cross Creek and Brentwood Farms subdivisions and is used by the Cross Creek subdivision's 1st through 6th grade children as they are not bused. Many of our friends and neighbors have underlying health conditions, including pacemaker device implants. Any form of electromagnetic field transmissions can easily disrupt the pacemaker, which can result in death. Not only does the vast population of our community have cats and dogs, the creek located within a mere 30 feet of the pole has housed families of ducks, fish, turtles, blue herons, hawks, foxes, etc., for as long as we've lived there, which is almost 40 years. All of our current utility and cable lines throughout our subdivisions are underground. However, Verizon's new 5G wireless technology requires it to be above ground via towers, utility poles, and antennas. I can speak for all of us when I state that this is exactly how our communities demand to remain. Our homes will also see a decrease in the value due to the perceived issue of having the 5G signal transmitted 24/7 by 365 and could be as much as 20%. In conclusion, we are strongly encouraging the Board of Trustees to take our concerns seriously. Our voices, commentary, and health matters just as yours. Prior to handing out the 5G wireless technology permits for utility poles, towers, and antennas that are intended to be inserted within our residential communities, we implore you to consider the harmful effects it has on us. The community needs your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elward. Do we have anyone else present who wishes to speak? Roger, is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak? Okay, hearing no more public comments, we'll move on to trustee comments. Trustee Oliver.
Okay. If anyone was at the Halloween hoopla, it was great. I just want to put a shout out to our Parker Recs and all their staff. I think there was 400 families that attended. There was a couple board members I think were there, but they were in costumes, so I didn't know for sure. So it was great, and just again a shout out to Park and Rec and their staff and everyone that helped put it together. And on another note, I want to thank they left, but the Macomb Township, Macomb County Sheriff's Department for their great service that they've given us. I was on the board at the time when the first contract got written. So they've been doing a great job ever since. So again, thank them. That's it.
Thank you, Trustee Oliver. Trustee Guzmano.
No comments, Mr. Supervisor.
Trustee Lucido.
A couple different things. One, I also want to thank the police department for the job that they do, and I'm happy that we're going to keep the relationship going forward. Want to thank Dawn Lund for coming in and giving her presentation and helping us understand that we can keep the water rates at a 0 increase again. I do want to let the residents know that behind the scenes, there are discussions going on about water towers, possible studies that we can do, and different ways of mitigating these future increases that we saw tonight that are probably coming. So, I don't want to make it look like we're just shutting the door, like we're not going to even look at a water tower or look at other ways of doing things. We are going to look at them. Me personally, in just our informal discussions that we've had, I don't know if I see that being a feasible thing to do in the short term, but possibly long term down the road to mitigate these possible increases that are coming. With regard to your presentation, sir, I did reach out to a couple of the different people that were on the list. This Madison Croyle from Tri-Leaf, she did get back to me, and all I got was, you need to talk to Verizon. So I then reached out to Verizon, and they basically sent me what I would equate to as a form letter that basically said, here's what you can't do, here's what we can do, and so on. I did reach out to some of the other leaders that you were talking about, and again, same idea is I do understand your frustration. I do feel the same way as you. I don't necessarily want them in the township, but unfortunately, it does look that way, that there's not much we can do. Now, I will continue to look into it as much as I can, but again, everywhere I was coming up with was kind of a dead end as well. But if you want to reach out to me, you have my email. I will continue to help you at least look into possibilities. There were some ordinances in other townships that I was starting to look into that might be able to help, but again, everything kind of seemed like a dead end, and I just wanted to make sure that you were aware. Thank you.
May I comment real quick?
I'm sorry, time for comments passed.
Okay.
My apologies.
It was in correlation to that.
So, Trustee Nevers.
Yes, I'm looking at a sheet of paper that I've gotten from our treasurer and enumerating all of the fiscal impact that this board and the leaders that are here every single day, and I am astounded at the progress. It seems like warp speed that we have done so much to become fiscally sound and in a very positive direction. And I'm thrilled with the information that I have in front of me. And also, I would like to say about our sheriff's department and our fire department, we are so blessed to have the type of system that we have here in Macomb Township. I'm speaking from a point of knowledge when I say, if I ever needed, like if my alarm went off, even though accidentally, they were there in a heartbeat. And same with information over the years that I'm privy to from our fire department. So I would just like to thank them profoundly for their excellence, and I'm very grateful to have them. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Nevers. Treasurer Gillette.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Couple things. One, I would like to also commend our Parks and Rec Department for a great time with the Halloween hoopla, and we had a great time, the Clerk Posey and myself, along with, Charlie and Pete, handing out little trinkets to the kids and Halloween fun. It was a really great time. So if anybody in the community who has little kids and they want to participate, it's something we want to look forward to coming to potentially next year. It was a lot of fun. Just to comment on the fiscal impact of the agenda, it's actually difficult in sometimes to impart what the impact of certain things is. What is the actual impact of using the sheriff department instead of having your own police department? I can only go by comparing us to neighboring communities and so forth, and attributing what that impact is. If the $188 that we pay per year compared to our neighbors paying $601 means our taxpayers in aggregate are saving $13,629,000 annually as a result of that relationship that we have with the sheriff's department. How much is the impact of a 0% water and sewer rate increase? What does that mean to residents? It doesn't mean they're saving anything; they're just not costing anything more. But if you compared it to what the average increases have been, and you look at the relatively smaller savings on the IT contract and the PASER study grant and the funds that we're generating from selling properties that are not being used and putting them to where residents can use them in the form of a park, the ultimate impact of just tonight's agenda is over $16,643,000 in no increases and in cost savings. And that's not money that the township gets to put in the bank. That's money that our residents get to keep in their bank accounts. And the goal of myself and the goal of this board is to find a way every day that we do work to provide value to our residents so that they are the beneficiaries of having those additional funds. So I just want to commend our department heads, our board in general for, I think, working as one with that mission of providing value to our residents. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Treasurer Gillette. Clerk Posey.
I think Treasurer Gillette said it all, so I'll just mirror what he says. I have nothing this evening.
All right, thank you. All right, Supervisors' Comments. Thanks again to the Sheriff's Office, like everybody else says. I appreciate all the hard work they do for us at such a great value. Congratulations to the Parks and Rec Department and all the other departments that helped them pull off Halloween Hoopla. I'm sorry I couldn't be there because I was out of town, but I heard it was a fantastic event. We had a very tragic accident on 24 Mile Road last Friday that I'm sure many people are aware of. I just want the residents to know that all of us here on the board are working with the Macomb County Department of Roads, DTE, and every other agency we can talk to figure out some better solutions for our school areas and to hopefully make them safer as quickly as we can. I'm just sorry that, this accident even had to happen, and we're all praying for the young man to get better and praying for his family. I want to thank BPI, who is our current IT service provider. I hope that anyone who gets to work with them in the future doesn't take us changing service providers as a reflection on their talent and their abilities. We appreciate everything they've done for us the last 8 years. It has been a pleasure, and they've been helpful and diligent in their work every step of the way. So thank you to BPI and to all of the staff members there who worked with us. Mr. Elwart, to you and your associates and neighbors, as we spoke on the phone, I completely appreciate your frustration. I've been there, as we talked about. I've been working with Trustee Lucido, Representative Yarrick. I know Representative Yarrick has been talking to Congresswoman McLean. It is extremely frustrating for all of you. I get it. The challenge we face is that the federal government, through the FCC, has literally taken jurisdiction out of out of our hands. It does not mean, like Trustee Lucido has said, we'll stop asking our state and federal legislatures if there's any way to change any of those current laws, and we will continue to do so. But it is an extremely difficult thing to take on a utility company. I've done it, and I've tried, and it's very, very, very challenging. They make it, they do it by design because the federal government wants the utility companies to be able to add all of these services, and in the process, our voice often gets left behind. And I'm sorry that that's the case, but that's how I know how this situation typically goes. But that being said, we haven't given up, and I know that Trustee Lucido is going to keep pushing forward, and I'm going to do everything I can to support him in my office. We'll do the same for you. So, that's all of I got on my comments. So next on the agenda, I'm looking for a motion to move into closed session. So for
So moved.
I'll state it first and then I'll ask for the motion. We're requesting a motion to go into closed session to discuss pending litigation for Authority v. Macomb Township, which is case number 2020-1432-CD, which is a Macomb County Circuit Court case, and case number 221-CV-10570-SFC-CI, which is a U.S. District Court case, and Authority v. Macomb Township, which is case number 2021-1809-CZ, which is also a Macomb County Circuit Court per MCL 15.268E, and also to discuss confidential legal opinions regarding an employee separation agreement and regarding the adoption of PA 152 per MCL 15-268H. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Support.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Posey, will you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Treasurer Drollet?
Yes.
Trustee Nevers?
Yes.
Trustee Kuzimano?
Yes.
Trustee Lucido?
Yes.
Trustee Oliver?
Yes.
Clerk Posey? Yes. Supervisor Viviano?
Yes. That motion carries. We are going into closed session. The time is 8:02. We are returning from closed session. We are returning to open session, and the time is 8:44 p.m. So now we have a new piece of new business to finish with. We have a request to approve the separation agreement effective October 27th, 2021, and the corresponding separation agreement between the Township of Macomb, AFSCME Local 1919.13, and its member employee number 509, and authorize the Township Supervisor to execute same on behalf of Macomb Township. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion by Treasurer Gillette, supported by Trustee Nevers, to approve the separation agreement with employee 509 and the AFSCME local in Macomb Township. Members, please vote. My computer went to sleep. Please hold. Hold, please.
Probably vote verbally and have Roger record it.
I'm getting there,
We'll wait.
Nancy, can you come log my computer in?
Can I what?
Come log my computer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Motion passes 7-0. And just for the record, item 18 on the agenda and part of item 19 regarding PA 152 were for informational purposes only. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion?
We are adjourned at
Treasurer-
what time, Mr. Chair?
There is a motion by Clerk Posey, supported by Treasurer Gillette, to adjourn. Members, please vote.
can't get mine to vote, so.
Charlie says yes.
Approved.
Charlie says yes. Motion passes 7-0. This meeting is adjourned at 8:46 PM.